the 8th of April, 1945, about 5 miles northwest of the city of Weimar, Nazi Germany. Buchenwald camp prisoners, using a secret shortwave transmitter and small generator, send the Morse code message to the Allies, to the army of General Patton. This is the Buchenwald concentration camp. SOS, we request help. They want to evacuate us. The SS want to destroy us. 3 minutes after the transmission, desperate prisoners receive the message, "Hold out, rushing to your aid, staff of Third Army." 3 days later, on the 11th of April, the US 6th Armored Division liberates Buchenwald and finds more than 21,000 survivors, who are weak and emaciated. After General Patton tours the camp, he orders the mayor of the nearby city of Weimar to bring 1,000 citizens to Buchenwald to be shown the crematorium and other evidence of Nazi atrocities. The Americans want to ensure that the German people take responsibility for Nazi crimes, instead of dismissing them as atrocity propaganda. Many of them cry, and some even faint after seeing the dead bodies, starved survivors behind barbed wire fences, as well as a table displaying paintings on human skins, various parts of the human body preserved in alcohol, and 2 heads which were shrunk to 1/5 of their normal size. One of the German Nazi perpetrators responsible for these atrocities is Ilse Koch. Ilse Koch was born as Margareta Ilse Köhler on the 22nd of September 1906 in Dresden, then part of the German Empire. Ilse, together with her 2 brothers, was raised by Protestant parents, and she was known as a polite and happy child. She graduated from elementary and commercial school, and in the 1920s, she worked in various companies as a secretary and bookkeeping clerk. In May 1932, the then 25-year-old Ilse joined the Nazi Party. She was drawn to the movement through her social engagement with members of the local SS detachment in Dresden. The SS perceived themselves as the racial elite of the Nazi future, and young Ilse was attracted to these uniformed, self-confident, and often ambitious young men. Adolf Hitler and his Nazi Party came into power on the 30th of January 1933. In May of 1934, Ilse met Karl Otto Koch, who on the 1st of September 1936 was appointed a commandant of Sachsenhausen, one of the largest concentration camps in Germany. It was at Sachsenhausen where on the 25th of May 1937, Ilse and Karl got married. The marriage produced 3 children, son Artvin, born in 1938, and 2 daughters, Gisela, born in 1939, and Gudrun, born in 1940. Even though Ilse Koch denied that she had ever entered the Sachsenhausen camp compound, a number of survivors later testified that she had participated in their abuse. Camp survivors later recalled how Ilse Koch would watch inmates work from her window, shouting reproaches at any who dared cast glances in her direction. And when they did, she would instruct guards to administer beatings. In August 1937, Karl Otto Koch was assigned to build a new concentration camp, Buchenwald, which then belonged to one of the largest concentration camps established within German borders. During the Second World War, which began on the 1st of September 1939, the Buchenwald main camp administered at least 88 sub-camps. Women were not a part of the Buchenwald camp system until 1943, and their presence significantly increased in 1944. At that time, Buchenwald took over sub-camps from the Ravensbrück concentration camp, which primarily imprisoned women. Even though after the war, Ilse Koch presented herself as a loyal SS wife, mother, holiday taker, caregiver, and horseback rider, her conduct at Buchenwald was one of frequent affairs, simultaneous lovers, and the sexual humiliation of prisoners. She ordered prisoners to serve her while she was nude and enjoyed sexually humiliating the sex-starved prisoners. With her husband, she had an open marriage, and in the camp she would engage in numerous affairs with SS officers as well as their wives, who were not much different from Ilse. One Sunday in February 1938, the prisoners had to stand naked in the square for 3 hours while SS men searched their clothing. During this time, Ilse Koch and 4 other SS officers' wives stood at the barbed wire fence and stared lewdly at the naked prisoners. Though after the war Ilse Koch claimed that she had never told her husband how Buchenwald should be run, nor how inmates should be treated, one witness testified that in the beginning of 1941, Karl Otto Koch issued an order to the effect that orders by his wife Ilse were to be obeyed to the same extent as if he had given them. This gave her enormous power, which she used against the prisoners. She enjoyed walking around Buchenwald half-naked or in skimpy clothing, provoking inmates to make eye contact with her, and when they did, they were taken by the guards and shot in the head. Ilse Koch also sexually abused the camp's prisoners and forced male inmates to rape female prisoners in front of her. Despite having 3 children of her own, she hated pregnant women, and she used to beat them with a whip, along the entire length of which pieces of a razor were inserted. Ilse Koch also found pleasure in beating child inmates, which she conducted with a smile on her face. Among the inmates, she was known as the Witch of Buchenwald. Her other nicknames were the Beast of Buchenwald or the Bitch of Buchenwald. After the war, numerous witnesses provided testimony of her behavior. One prisoner testified that on one occasion in June 1940, he drank a glass of wine, and Ilse reported him to her husband. As punishment, the inmate was beaten and forced to run across a pile of rocks barefoot several times. He also received 25 lashes with a stick, and was later taken to the camp prison where he was hanged by his arms for 3 hours. After the war, she claimed that this inmate had been her house orderly, and he had smashed glassware and bottles of wine, broken open a cabinet, scattered her clothing, and had been found lying in the basement completely drunk. She agreed that she had called her husband to intervene, but she did not suggest the punishment to be given, neither to him nor the other inmates. The aforementioned prisoner also testified how in the beginning of 1940, he and a Czech chaplain were digging a deep ditch. They looked up and saw Ilse Koch standing astride the ditch. She wore a short skirt but no underwear. She inquired saying, "What are you doing looking up here?" Following which, she beat them with her riding crop, causing the Czech chaplain to bleed from the face and nose. After the war, Ilse Koch testified that she never carried a riding crop and insisted that she wore complete riding dress including riding pants, boots and jacket. Another witness testified that in the fall of 1941, Ilse Koch told her husband, "This dirty pig dared to look at me." Her husband then beat the inmate so severely that it was necessary to carry the victim away. Ilse was present the entire time. One witness testified that in the spring of 1941, Karl Otto Koch beat an Austrian inmate severely with a riding crop and kicked him in the presence of Ilse, who said, "Have a look at this dirty swine off there, too lazy to work. I don't want to see him anymore. All he does is stare at you anyway." On one occasion, Ilse Koch observed an inmate who had diarrhea relieving himself. She ordered the SS officer in charge of the detail to put a stop to it at once. The SS officer then overworked the inmate for about an hour, resulting in his collapse. The victim died the next day. Another witness testified that in the summer of 1942, Ilse Koch complained that a detail of 11 inmates working near her house had picked berries. As punishment, 5 of the inmates received 25 lashes. The rest received 5 blows on their nude bodies. One Buchenwald survivor testified that in the summer of 1942, while proceeding to the Koch house in which he often worked, he saw how Ilse Koch hit a Jewish inmate in the face and on the body with a stick. In 1941 or 1942, columns of Jewish inmates were forced to carry heavy rocks from the stone quarry to the Koch's house. These inmates were weak and could not run. Ilse hit some of them with her riding crop, causing a number of them to fall and knock others down. Many severely injured Jewish inmates were carried into camp in the course of the day. At Buchenwald, Ilse Koch became obsessed with tattoos and used to ride her horse around Buchenwald looking for tattooed prisoners. After the war, one prisoner testified that in the summer of 1940, a French or Belgian inmate named Jean was working without his shirt. He had some excellent tattoos, including a colored cobra winding all the way up his left arm, and an especially cleanly tattooed sailboat with 4 masts on his chest. Ilse Koch rode over to him and said, "Let's work faster, faster," and then took his number. This inmate was called to the gate during the evening roll call and was not seen again. The witness asserted that 6 months or more later, in the pathological department he saw a skin with the same sailboat he had seen on Jean. He asserted that later he saw this same skin on an album belonging to Ilse Koch. Another Buchenwald survivor testified that in 1941 he heard that a lampshade of tattooed human skin was delivered to Ilse Koch. It was common knowledge in the camp that after Ilse Koch saw tattooed inmates, they were called to the hospital and killed in order to obtain their tattooed skin. A 4th inmate testified that there were 2 lampshades in the home of Ilse Koch, said to have been made from human skin. One appeared to have tattoos on it. According to various testimonies, Ilse had a photo album, a briefcase, and a pair of gloves made from tattooed skin. In 1941, Ilse and Karl Otto Koch caught the attention of Josias Waldeck in Piermont, the higher SS and police leader for Weimar, who in this position had supervisory authority over Buchenwald concentration camp. He discovered that Karl Otto Koch had had at least 3 prisoners killed because they had treated him for syphilis, and he feared this might be discovered. Due to this investigation, which was based on allegations of Karl Otto Koch's improper behavior at Buchenwald, which included corruption, fraud, embezzlement, drunkenness, sexual offenses, and murder, in September 1941, Karl Otto Koch was transferred to the Majdanek concentration camp in German-occupied Poland. During this time, Ilse was still living at the commandant's house in Buchenwald. Waldeck ordered a full-scale investigation of the camp by Georg Konrad Morgen, an SS officer who was an SS judge in the SS court main office. Morgen further investigated Karl Otto Koch's order to kill the aforementioned 3 inmates, as well as evidence of embezzlement of the possessions stolen from prisoners, thanks to which in May 1940 he had an indoor riding arena built for himself and his wife Ilse, which cost over 250,000 Reichsmarks, an equivalent of almost 2.4 million United States dollars today. Karl Otto Koch also bought a luxury car and opened Swiss bank accounts with money extorted from prisoners. The Kochs were accused of embezzlement of over 700,000 Reichsmarks, an equivalent of more than 6.7 million United States dollars today, and Karl was charged with both embezzlement and the unauthorized murder of 3 prisoners. As a result of the investigation, more of Koch's orders to kill prisoners at the camp were revealed. Because the Kochs had used the massive Nazi apparatus to gain an enormous amount of wealth, they were both arrested in August 1943 to await trial by an SS court. While Ilse was acquitted for lack of evidence, Karl Otto Koch was executed by firing squad on the 5th of April 1945. The Buchenwald camp, the place of the Kochs' atrocities, was liberated on the 11th of April 1945. Ilse Koch spent the last months before the end of the war in Ludwigsburg, where part of her family lived. Because of her lifestyle, which was characterized by sexual and alcohol excesses, her relatives tried to withdraw her custody from the children, but due to the war turmoil, this happened only after she had been arrested by the US authorities in late June 1945. Ilse Koch was then tried at the Buchenwald Trial, which began on the 11th of April 1947 in the internment camp of Dachau, where the former Dachau concentration camp had been located until late April 1945. Out of 31 defendants, Ilse Koch was the only woman. During the trial, Koch denied being involved in any way or had any knowledge of the abuse and murder of camp inmates. William Denson, the chief prosecutor during the trial, said that Koch was a creature from some other tortured world who had overstepped the bounds of womanhood. He added that she was nothing less than a sadistic pervert of monumental proportions unmatched in history. While the 30 male defendants on trial received little or no media attention, reporters highlighted that Ilse Koch was a woman, that she had red hair, that she was the Witch of Buchenwald, or some other information of this kind. They also described her as a psychopath, an arrogant woman, and that she collected human lampshades made out of tattooed skin. While to the media, the other defendants were just other persons, Ilse Koch was much more than that. She was a monster. When the sentences were handed down on the 14th of August, 1947, Koch was in the advanced stages of pregnancy. The chief prosecutor in Koch's 1947 case said that the only reason she was sentenced to life imprisonment instead of to death was because she was pregnant. Ilse Koch was sentenced to life imprisonment, and her son Uwe, conceived while in custody, was born in October 1947. Uwe's father was another German prisoner. Ilse Koch's sentence was initially commuted to 4 years, but after a general outcry, she was immediately indicted by a German court for instigation to murder in 135 cases. The hearing of the second trial opened on the 27th of November 1950 and lasted 7 weeks, during which 250 witnesses were heard, including 50 for the defense. Koch collapsed and had to be carried from court in late December 1950 and again in January 1951. At least 4 witnesses for the prosecution testified that they had seen Ilse Koch choose tattooed prisoners who were then killed, or had seen or been involved in the process of making human skin lampshades from tattooed skin. When on the 15th of January 1951, the court pronounced its verdict in a 111-page-long decision, sentencing Ilse Koch to life imprisonment, she was not present in court. She made several petitions for pardon, all of which were rejected by the Bavarian Ministry of Justice. Artvin, the only son of Ilse and Karl Koch, could not live with the shame of the crimes of his parents and committed suicide in 1967. At this time, Ilse Koch was experiencing delusions and had become convinced that concentration camp survivors would abuse her in her cell. In addition, she complained that the dead prisoners of Buchenwald came to her through the walls and demanded to return their skin. On the 1st of September 1967, shortly after her son Artvin's death, the mentally ill Ilse Koch committed suicide. She was 60 years old when she hanged herself with a bedsheet, after which she was buried in an unmarked grave. There were no tears shed for Ilse Koch. Thanks for watching the World History Channel. Be sure to like and subscribe, and click the bell notification icon so you don't miss our next episodes. We thank you, and we'll see you next time on the channel.